What a beautiful morning we've got going. First part of June, Zone 4, Northern Great Plains, and we're coming up on a bonny blue Colorado spruce. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is the Colorado spruce. This is just a beautiful, perfect blue. It's got a shorter needle than the native Colorado spruce. It's also going to have a little bit more of a compact size. It's going to get up into that 25-foot height by 15-foot width, but just doing absolutely beautiful here. Most of the Colorados that we're looking at have just flushed out what they call that new candle growth. The buds have opened, they've emerged, and so you really get an additional just vibrant, spectacular color on some of these Colorados. And what can happen over time, the Colorados, they will change color throughout the season. They're most brilliant in the spring after that new bud growth emerges, and then they can kind of fade into a little bit softer color. But some of the newer varieties like this bonny blue, we're going to cover a bunch of the different blues, just better and better varieties being released with that outstanding color, and that maintains that blue throughout the season. Before we move on to our next variety, I want to first give you a little perspective on the Colorado spruce. Look at the size of these right here. These are probably 80, maybe even 100 years old. This is in city I live close to, and just how big they are. Look how close they were planted to some of the houses. And yeah, these are massive trees. Look at that. So we're talking about the bigger native Colorado spruce, and that's where a lot of the varieties come from. That plant breeders, they select certain qualities, certain characteristics, and they study them, some of them, for their lifetime. So when I'm talking about new varieties, you know, we might be referring to something that's even 40, 50 years old, but I still kind of consider that a new variety. And here we're coming up on the Procumbens Colorado spruce. Yeah, the Procumbens, that one's going to do kind of a sprawling, have some upright branches, but look at all the room it has to fill in this area. Some of those different gaps, we can let it kind of fill in there. All this area up front, and this one's taken a while to dig its heels in. This has been in here, I bet, close to 10 years, and it's finally now starting to really show its true colors. And look at this one. This is what I'm after. This is a more mature one that I found at an arboretum. Just an absolutely beautiful specimen. Yeah, I've had to be patient on this one, and that's part of some of the different conifers, different evergreens. They can be slow growing. Sometimes it takes them a long time to root in, but once they finally really establish that root system, you're going to see some amazing growth. So be patient, take care of your plants, get them the proper water, proper fertilizer. Isn't this something? Yeah, I've never touched this, I don't think ever pruned any part of it. And when I planted it, I think it was just kind of a little compact, almost looked like a little globe spruce, but you read the description on the tag, and that's where you're going to find out some of the qualities that you eventually can appreciate and enjoy. So yeah, the Procumbens Colorado spruce. Okay, we'll go ahead and we're going to cut through this opening here. We'll take a swing by a project that I've got in works. I had a blue arrow juniper that I dug out of the ground. Again, you can check description for some of these different videos. Yeah, but we're going to make that bed into something beautiful. Still trying to plan it out in my mind how I want to do it. But for now, we're going to go ahead and work our way over to the Dwarf Sesters Colorado spruce. Look at this guy. Here again, I have never ever touched this spruce. That's just all on its own. This is probably one of the older beds you're looking at here. This is pushing, I think, close to 15 years now. A lot of different varieties in there. Okay, yeah, the Dwarf Sesters. This is one of the smallest that I grow. Supposed to level out around that 6 feet. I have seen them get bigger than this. I would bet into that 8 to 10 are the largest ones that I've ever come across. But just a beautiful blue. And again, it's enhanced with that new candle growth. You're going to see just a little bit more vibrant color, but this one still maintains that blue all season long. Great for that small area where you want a blue spruce, but you don't have the room for a big Colorado spruce. So the Dwarf Sesters, absolutely recommend this one for a beautiful, beautiful specimen for your gardens. Look at how that blue Dwarf Sesters blends in with some of the other colors we've got in here. Back here we've got an emerald carousel barberry. That's going to kick out and have some yellow flowers. We've got an icy blue juniper down there, a weeping larch. This is just a really nice area. A lot of complementary colors there. And then the DeGroots arborvitaes in the backdrop. Yeah, I just love this little setting. Love how this turned out. Dwarf Sesters, great spruce. And over on the back side of this bed, tucked behind this Tannenbaum Mugel pine, here's one of the globe Colorado spruce. I've got another one we're going to talk about. This about twice the size of this one, but this one's doing pretty well in here as well. One of the things you're going to find with the globe Colorado spruce, they will try to revert eventually to more of a pyramid type habit, and then we rename them. We call them Montgomery spruce. I'm kind of joking, but that's kind of what happens is, unless you have the exact label, sometimes you don't know. Again, just beautiful blue color on this. It's a solid, tough plant, zone 2 hardy. Just that great color accent again. And as I walked up to this spruce, I've got another little one right over here. Kind of forgot all about this guy. I gotta look this up. This one at one point was next to a large river birch. You can see the trunk there, and it got shaded out. That continues to die back on me, but look at this. We're gonna have to find out what this is. This one might end up being kind of like that Procumbens, where it just doesn't do anything, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they take off and become something really, really special. We're gonna work our way up to a next Colorado spruce, another globe, but a much smaller one, and it's a green Colorado spruce. This is Roundabout. Look at that. That thing will maintain that shape, almost forever. Hardly grows at all. Look at this. Just the tiniest amount of growth. I mean, we're probably talking a ½ inch to an inch. Beautiful, beautiful little green Colorado spruce. This Colorado's still doing pretty good here. It gets a lot of the early morning sun, but you can see as this Taylor sunburst starts to get bigger, we've also got a prairie stature oak here. They're going to start casting more and more shade. And the Colorado spruce, at least I'm going to say 4 to 6 hours of sun is kind of the minimum. So what could happen over the years, we might start seeing a little bit of a void on the backside because it just won't be getting enough sun. But for now, we're going to leave it. There's no reason to try to transplant it out of there. We'll just let it fill in, do its own thing here. So the Roundabout Colorado spruce, beautiful little dwarf selection. Okay, let's move along to Hoops blue spruce. Hoopsie is the scientific variety name. Look at that. Yeah, this one took some courage for me. I love leaving a plant in its natural state. And what I decided to do, since I've got a lot of different competition underneath here, I'm an overplanter, if I can be called that. I got to have one of everything. But I lifted up the branches and I thought, let's see how this thing does. When I initially bought it, I thought it was going to be one of those goofy, like the weeping type, and I just didn't pay attention. But this gets to be a pretty big spruce, but look at that size. I'm pretty sure we can get up into the 30, 35 feet. One of the things I really like about it, obviously that blue color is outstanding on it, but take a look at the nice cones. The ones from last year, good size, showy, and look at the red up there. I had never noticed that on this spruce before. That's the early color on that cone. What a fantastic look on that spruce. Can you imagine as we get more and more cones and new growth in the spring, and if we had red over the majority of the tree? Geez, what just a great thing to enjoy. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at our next spruce. This is the Montgomery spruce. Now, we've also been pruning this spruce now. I don't want it to get any bigger in there, and it'll inch ahead of us, but we'll be able to maintain that shape for quite some time. So the Montgomery spruce, a little bit bigger than that Dwarf Sester's, quite a bit more width to it. So we're going to prune this one, and it's fun to experiment. I like to do different things to different spruce. We'll try shearing on some, leave some, and kind of see what the effect is, what it looks like. The more you shear, the tighter that growth is going to get. So eventually some of these little hollow openings here, they'll fill in. That lateral growth, that'll continue to kind of create new buds, and eventually this is going to look like a sheared Christmas tree. There's another variety I've been reading about called Monty blue spruce. That's a cross between that Hoops you see there and this Montgomery. And that Monty is supposed to have an even brighter blue color, keeps a smaller form in that 8 to 10 foot height. So keep your eye out for that variety. I sure am. And just behind us here, we've got another one of the Globe Colorado spruces. This one's called the Globe on Standard. Tucked in there. Gonna have to keep that sheared as well. We haven't touched it yet, but it's been trained as a tree. You can see it still has that little support stick there. That's probably not doing much anymore. That trunk is probably strong enough at this point. Here again, we are gonna have to contend a little bit in the future with shade. This one's still gonna pick up just a little bit of it. It'll get a glance of sun in the mid-morning, and then we're gonna get some late day sun. So still getting enough, and we'll start lifting up these Canada red branches higher and higher. So it'll still have that bright light, but eventually it could become a problem for it. But so far, we're really enjoying this little Colorado spruce. I haven't mentioned yet, when should you prune? And normally you can do this in the spring before they break bud, all the way up until those candles are fully emerged. After that, I don't like to do it after midsummer or even into fall. So I'm a late winter guy. Up through late spring is my favorite time to do shearing on the evergreens. Now all these Colorado spruce did form our shelter belt. They were planted for me here, but one of the first ones I put in the ground when we first got to this location was this Pyramidal Colorado spruce right there. This one is really starting to put on some size. Columnar blue Colorado spruce. Maybe you notice a little bit that it's starting to lean to the right, and that was from a windstorm, over 5 years ago. Even though this Colorado has that nice columnar shape, you've got to give it some room. It can get some size, and this one doesn't have the brilliant blue that some of the other varieties we've already looked at. It's got a nice blue as it flushes out, but that's going to fade into just kind of a more mellow blue, kind of like the older fashioned Colorados that we first looked at, those large, massive trees, but still just a beautiful tree. If you don't have the room to get that spread, this is still a variety I'm sure you can find out there. A couple years ago, we went through a pretty good drought, lasted about 1.5 growing seasons, and this one did actually drop quite a few needles on those inner branches, but it's rebounded nicely. So the Colorado spruce, they do take some pretty dry situations, but not forever. And then also the Colorado spruce, the reason they're doing great in my area is we're more of an arid state and we don't have that high humidity. We also have a neutral to higher pH, and the Colorado spruce are one of the best evergreens for tolerating that high pH. Okay, let's go ahead, move on to our next Colorado spruce. We've got 3 in this bed here. This is one that I really am looking forward to talking to you about. Look at the growth on this. It's got kind of a whitish on that new burst of growth. Look at that. Yeah, I really wasn't paying attention to this spruce over the last couple of years till I started doing a little bit of research on the different spruce. It can have a little bit of an irregular form, as you can see there, when it's young, but this one will want to be eventually a pretty tall pyramidal plant. This is spring gold Colorado spruce, and when I say pretty tall, I mean pretty tall for the area. This can get about 10 feet, so it's actually one of the smaller pyramidal type, but it does have that irregular form, which is normal on some of the younger ones, and then it's going to start tightening up, I think. But just a beautiful little plant. I love this irregular form, just something a little bit different, not just that perfect conical. So we're really starting to enjoy this. Let's go ahead and move on to that next Colorado. This is one of the weeping blue spruce. Yeah, look at that. What I'm going to have to do on this one eventually, I can see already, I'm going to go ahead, I'll probably start pruning off just a few of these branches in here. What I want to do is make sure I keep this effect where you've got a window here that you can look through. I've got a couple other examples. I've seen these pictures in different yards, my different travels, some of the different goofy things they do. I've learned over the years, the weeping spruce, they aren't for everybody. It seems like you either love them or you hate them. I happen to love them. And this is one of my favorites. Look at this weeping Colorado here. You get to intermingle with your plant as you go through that entry door. Isn't that just fascinating? I absolutely love how that looks. Just one of my favorite. This weeping blue, it doesn't get as bright a blue. Again, that new growth is pretty good, but it's going to harden off and almost look, I'm going to say a little bit more towards the greenish, so a very soft blue. But what we're after in this one is that weeping character. And every weeping blue is going to have its own characteristic, its own look. And you can see that weeping have a different angle, looks completely different from this side. Very unique. The green plant in front of it, that's the hillside creeper Scotch pine. It's supposed to stay kind of in that 3 foot high and just move sideways. This one wants to kind of keep moving a little bit higher. So I have done some pruning on that, but the weeping Colorado spruce, if you like that look, that's a great one. And we're getting a little bit of color on some of those new cones, not as bright pink as we saw on that hoops. And let's go ahead and cut through that opening right behind our weeping Colorado spruce. We've got another nice little compact upright selection. This is Avatar blue spruce. Doing well in there. This is in a really dry location out here. This one really doesn't get any water other than what the rains are going to provide. This is another really good selection if you've got limited space, going to get up into that 15 foot height, that 10 to 12 foot width. Nothing just outstanding on this Avatar other than it's just maybe the perfect size that you're going to need. I'm going to say it's got a pretty good blue, not like the Bonnie blue, not like the hoops, but a great little spruce doing well here in an incredibly dry location. And next to our weeping Colorado spruce, down there we've got a Calgary carpet, that's one of the neighbors, but this is Herman now Colorado spruce. And one of the characteristics on the Herman now, they do have a very, very bright pink cone. I don't think we're quite there yet. These are just starting to emerge. For now, that Herman now, just a smaller or regular mound type spruce, and mostly sold for those showy pink cones. To the next Colorado spruce, we'll cut through this opening. And another globe. This one's that other globe I mentioned a bit ago, about twice the size. That's pushing close to, oh boy, 8 to 10 feet on that Colorado globe now. And I have had to prune this back quite a bit on the top to keep this globe shape. You can see there's another little leader there trying to take off. Yeah, so I'm gonna see how big we can get this and how wide it'll eventually go. A lot of rock edging in our landscaping. One of the nice things about that is it's pretty easy just to pop out and bring it out and give your plants a little bit more room. And that's what we're gonna have to do on this globe, Colorado. One of the main reasons I wanna move that edging, not only do I wanna see how wide I can get this, and I suspect it could get, I tell you what, 15, maybe even 20 foot wide, but every time you rub up against it, say if you're mowing, doing the weed whipping, you're slowing down that growth. So what can happen is you can get kind of a distorted side. It'll keep growing on the other side. So I use a lot of rock edging for that purpose. I like the look of it, and it's easy to shift and give your plants more room in beds. We'll work our way back over closer to our starting point. And now we're coming up on the Blue Horizon Colorado spruce. Look at how nicely that bright blue color contrasts with our rusted metal arbor. I really, really like how this is doing in this setting. Now I'm also going to be keeping this pruned in as much of a narrow shape as I possibly can. I couldn't find any information on this variety. Perhaps I wrote down the wrong name in our notes, or maybe it's just a variety that has fallen out of favor. But I like the color on it. This one's got that bright blue. Again, a little bit bigger needle, and when we keep this sheared, it'll just get tighter and tighter, and my goal is I want height and I want narrow on this. And then back to where we started, right behind us here, where we're back to that Bonnie Blue spruce. Okay, then that was fun to share with you all the different Colorado spruce that we've got growing in our garden. I'm planning on having still shots of all these Colorado spruce that we looked at today on my website, gardenhike.com, and then I'll do some updates throughout the season as things slow down a little bit for me, give you some different characteristics, size and hardiness type ratings on each Colorado spruce. Thanks for stopping by Garden Hike. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you again soon.